Good evening, everybody. Richard Berry, Old Bristolian Society President. It gives me huge pleasure to be able to talk to you this evening in what is highly unusual circumstances, obviously, but important nonetheless that we get together and connect. Firstly, I'd like to thank Jeff Wright and the Old Bristolian Society Committee for giving me the opportunity to act as president, but also extending that opportunity into next year. Normally, this would be a handover period, and I would be handing on to the next president, but because of the extenuating circumstances around the pandemic, the Society have asked me to stand again. So I have the opportunity to socialise and meet as many of you as possible at the various events organised by Pete Jakobek and Caitlin and the Old Bristolian Society. So that's great news. And what I was going to talk about tonight, I want to just reflect on a few things, and the theme of this is the importance of connection. A few weeks ago, I was reading the paper and came across an article about the rover landing on Mars, and it linked to a YouTube video, which I thought, oh, I must look that up later. Later on, I found myself sat at the computer and thought, YouTube video, let's look. I watched the amazing footage of the sent back of some of it was animation, some of it was true film of this rover landing, however many thousand miles, millions of miles it is away, back, sending those images back to Earth. I watched as the rover descended and then eventually landed and was greeted by a camera cut back to the control room in America, where the ground control crew screamed, celebrated, shouted, connected, and showed huge happiness. And I was really surprised to find tears running down my face at that point. And being a sort of analytical person that I am, I thought, what is that about? And I began to realize that actually that sort of connection, that sort of celebration, that sort of emotional activity I had missed. I get that often through my sport. I got it as a head teacher in school, mixing with students, taking assemblies and just having fun around the school. I also got it from friendship groups, etc. And obviously that's all been taken away in the last 12 months. So what's that got to do with tonight? Well, it will not go unnoticed that behind me on this, sorry, that side is my rugby club baiser and tie with the Old Bristolians badge on it. Really important for me. I wear that often. If I'm ever at an Old Bristolians event and I'm not president wearing my Bristolians medal, I've always got my Old Bristolians cufflinks on. And that's about representation and also the connectedness of being part of something that's bigger than just you. Above me, there's a Bristol Bears flag. You know, I work for Bristol Bears in the academy setup, and I have a lot of Bristol Bears kit. And my wife often says to me, why are you always wearing something that's got a badge on it? And for me, that's about connection. That's for me about belonging. That's for me about wanting to be part of something bigger and celebrating the fact that I'm part of something bigger. So tonight, when we come together at an Old Bristolians event, this connection, this dinner, which would normally happen in such a large gathering in the Great Hall, is that social event where people begin to reconnect, begin to get back together, meet old friends, celebrate, enjoy themselves. And that is what we have missed so much in the last 12 months. Working within the field of mental health, what we know is that mental health is a big concern for everybody at the moment, of isolation, the lack of ability to get out and connect. And in my last Bristoliensis article, I talked about going through the phone book, connecting with people, looking up old friends, small acts of kindness, because small acts of kindness are shown to make us feel better and the people who receive those acts of kindness feel better. So the work that Caitlin and Pete do in the alumni office is really, really important in bringing people together, sharing stuff on Facebook, which sparks memories and causes chat, bringing groups together in organised events, whether that be the Oxford dinner, the London dinner, or wherever, the opportunity to celebrate and remember the good times that you had at school. Because as your teachers would have always told you, and I told many young people that I taught, the best years of your life are at school, because those connections are all around you. Later on in life, when maybe you've got to go out and search for them, it gets harder. So let's just reflect. The last year has been really hard around socializing, connecting, being part of organizations. And for a lot of us, doing Zoom or Teams just doesn't cut it. So let me urge you, looking forward, looking forward to next year's dinner, first of all, looking forward to the organised events that are going to take place in the next year of getting together, the soirees, the dinners, etc., etc. They may be the highlight for some of you, but the highlight for others will just be that little bit of connection when you pick up the phone or write a letter and get in touch with somebody. Over this last period of time, I've written to a number of people I haven't spoken to in 10 years. And the joy in recalling memories and getting together has been really, really important. That connectivity, that belonging. So whether you wear your Old Bristolians badge with pride on your cuffs, on your breast badge, or whether actually you wear it inside here in your memory, use it to connect with other people. The Old Bristolian Society is an amazing connecting device. You know, you meet somebody and all of a sudden you have such commonality in place with the place that you went to school, the teachers who have taught you, which sparks conversation, which brings back great memories and makes you smile. And as Jeff would appreciate, what that does is it triggers dopamine and serotonin in the brain and makes you feel so much better. So connect, enjoy yourself, get through to the light at the end of the tunnel, and I hope to see you at the dinner next year. Thanks very much.
Good evening, everybody. This is a very strange experience, recording this actually a couple of days before you're watching it, from the rather prosaic surroundings of the Headmaster's study. I had gone into the centre of school. It's a gorgeous spring afternoon at the moment while I'm recording this, and I wanted to have the backdrop of the Great Hall and the Winterstoke Wing as well, but unfortunately the wind noise, and the wind was actually physically moving the camera around, combined with the lovely noise of the children who are back in school at the moment, meant that I wasn't able to do that. So I'm doing it in here. And how different it is to what I was doing 53 weeks ago today, which was talking to you all at the last Old Bristolians dinner, where we were actually all in the Great Hall. A very different time. The pandemic had started, but we hadn't had our first lockdown. We had decided to go ahead with the OB's dinner. We had a good number of people here for a great evening. And then within a week of that, we'd had to switch schooling fully to remote learning, probably thinking it would be for a couple of weeks till the end of term. Maybe at most half term of the summer term would be taken out as well. Little did we know that all this time later, 53 weeks later, just over a year later, the students and our pupils have been in remote learning more than they've been in school in that interim. So it's been a tumultuous year in many ways, but I'm glad that in whatever way we can, we are celebrating the OB dinner. I'd much rather we're all together, and I'm really looking forward to the time when we can do that again. Hopefully sooner rather than later, as we start to see the shoots of recovery at the end of this long and tumultuous 12-month period so far. The OBs are such an important part of our community. I hope you already know that. It's something I have stressed in my time, in my 2.5 years here as headmaster, that being at a school like BGS, one of the great ancient schools of this country, you're always a part of this school. No matter how long you are a pupil here for, you'll be an Old Bristolian for life. And it's a very, very important part that you play in our community. I wish we were all together, but I'm hoping that this virtual dinner has meant that you've managed to connect with people who you may not have seen had we been here, people from far, or rather further flung parts of the country and even the globe than you might have otherwise been able to see. It's so important that connection remains strong. It's one of the great things you all take away from here is those friendships for life. I want to think particular of one particular batch of Old Bristolians as well. I don't know how many are tuned in today, how many are doing this, but that's the latest batch, so to speak, of Old Bristolians, the class of 2020, and have a real think for what the last 12 months have been like for them, because they didn't have the normal end of school leaving rights that you might have. Because of COVID, that was all taken away. No leavers dinner, no prize day, no leavers concert, all that kind of stuff. And then they went through the debacle of the grading process, whether it was IB, pre-U or A-level last year. And then they've had a really broken first year of whatever they were going on to do, whether that be university, the world of work, or gap year plans. So a particularly warm welcome to any of those who are listening, and our thoughts go out to you and and our celebration of your incredible resilience over this year. We're still hoping to have your Leavers dinner, maybe sometime this summer with any luck. And it will be strange that in many ways you might be having your first reunion today before you've officially had your Leavers dinner. But you've been incredibly resilient, and welcome to the Old Bristolians community. We also want to say a proper goodbye to members of staff who left last year that we haven't managed to say a proper goodbye to. And particularly for the Old Bristolians, I'll mention two. Nick Diamond, who you will know was a stalwart, an absolute star of our biology department for over 30 years, well over 30 years, I think 36 or 37 years, and has had long-standing and familial commitment to the school. She was our first female head of house, first to be head of two separate houses as well, the Yellow House and I believe the Brown House before that. Nick, an absolute legend of BGS. We're looking forward to welcoming you back to a proper Old Bristolians dinner at some point, but also before that, bringing you back into school so that the staff and pupils can say a proper goodbye that we didn't manage to do last year. I also would like to extend the same offer to Matt Bennett, one of my deputies last year who has left us to become the head of Clifton High School. Matt came and joined us as a biology teacher and a head of biology, is himself an Old Bristolian, and after 10 years here has quite rightly moved on to a senior position at another local very good school. We'll be saying goodbye to a few more long-standing members of staff this year, and we'll be inviting them to next year's Old Bristolian dinner therefore. Amongst them, I won't say too much about them now because the time will be there will be a time to do that more formally, but Paul Whitehouse, our long-serving and outstanding head of DT, Nick Fuller, a legend of BGS, another legend of BGS, and Kate Jones from Maths and from our admissions and marketing department. So what else has happened this year? It has been a year massively interrupted by COVID, as you know, but it's been a really, really very positive year at BGS, as you would expect from such a positive community. The autumn term, we came back after the pupils have been away since March the 19th and finally came back in the autumn term. It was very different to what they'd been used to. They were in year group bubbles. They had hand washing stations as soon as they came into school. They were placed in one place, each year group as a bubble, with staff moving around between lessons rather than the other way around. Lots of things like clubs and activities and sports had to be curtailed, so it wasn't usual, but everybody was just over the moon to be back. The staff have been absolutely extraordinary throughout the entire year, did everything to keep them calm, safe, and to get on with learning as it should be. But the pupils themselves have been so brilliantly resilient. There is a huge number of pupils who've not known Bristol any other way, Bristol Grammar School any other way. They came here, our current year sevens, a lot in the lower sixth and a few other pupils and staff who joined us this year. But they came to what was a really good autumn term, very inventive in many ways, and that was fantastic. We then got ready to come back for the spring term, this term. Got them back for one day before a national lockdown was announced in another one of the government's now almost de rigueur U-turns, which left us scrambling around a bit, but we got there. We've offered a fantastic remote care and remote learning this term. We've pretty much stuck to the full timetable in the senior school, including registrations, tutor time, wellbeing time, as well as all the learning that's occurring. So that was another term that we've had of remote learning, again, that being limited in its own way, but our pupils really being able to make the most of the learning we were offering and the care that we were offering through whatever mechanisms we could remotely. It's been fantastic, therefore, seeing them back in school for the last 2 weeks, being safe, but being really happy to be back. And again, I want to pay tribute to the resilience of our pupils. They have been outstanding. I put in last year's Chronicle, even before this year had begun to happen, that I already thought that this was probably the biggest societal difficulty since, I don't want to sound over dramatic, but since the end of the Second World War. What these children have had to face, there's probably been no parallel since those sorts of times. When you think about it from the point of view of pupils in particular, whether they're 4 years old or 18 years old, they're all children at our school. They're at a time, those formative years or those teenage years, where they're meant to be biologically breaking away from the bonds of family and home and starting to make links with their peer groups and looking forward to greater independence and so on. All of that, as well as their learning, as well as everything else you come to school for, has been massively disrupted. And so we've worked very, very hard on helping them through this. And we know that will be an ongoing process for months and years to come. But huge tribute to all of our pupils, as well as our staff and our parents and guardians who've been magnificent throughout all of this. So other news from this year. I'm aware I'm rambling a bit. I'll try and finish in the next 4 or 5 minutes. Other news from this year. Academically speaking, we were pleased to hear a couple of months ago that we had 12 Oxbridge offers, which is fantastic. It's not by any means the only measure that we use for academic success, not even one of the main measures, but I know it's one that lots of OBs like to hear about, particularly in a year where we're hearing lots about independent and private school pupils suffering due to drives to try to broaden access to those elite universities. We've continued at the high level we've had of the last few years, which has been fantastic. We've got some fantastic EPQ, Extended Project Qualification grades, in January too. If you're not sure what that is, it's a great qualification that rewards original thinking, rewards researching skills, presentation skills, synthesis, and real self-starting academic skills. And for example, we had essays on how you measure happiness in Bhutan, on whether floating homes offer a solution to rising sea levels, and even a model that was built to explore the uniqueness of the occipital condyle in Triceratops. Not entirely sure what that means, but maybe some of you are. So academically, we're going great guns. We're supporting our pupils the best we can through the uncertainty over what grading and awarding will look like this year. But that's all progressing as it should. In terms of sport, this really puts things into perspective. There have been no inter-school sports fixtures since the last OB dinner. In that last year, we haven't been able to do any of that for obvious reasons. But we've been doing whatever sport we can, particularly during lockdown. There were challenges set for pupils to be doing at home, in their gardens, in the park, whatever it might be. House challenges, which have been as popular as ever. At the moment, we're in the middle of our whole community round the world challenge to see if we add together all the miles covered in cycling, walking, running, swimming, other activities that are logged on apps, how far we can get. And I know a lot of old Bristolians have been involved with that. Thanks for that. I know the last I heard over a week ago, we'd gone past Fiji. So hopefully we're getting across the rest of the Pacific to the Western Americas, and maybe we'll finish going across the Americas, across the Atlantic and back to the UK and to Bristol soon. That's been wonderful to see. Performing arts obviously have had lots of restrictions during these times, but they've been so inventive by how they've responded to it. Things like our lockdown monologues, concerts, musical concerts, dance shows, all have been videoed, uploaded to YouTube, our YouTube and social media channels. I hope you've had a chance to look at them, but you'll find them on our website if you're interested. The music department also pulled together a great festive concert to send to MHA, who are the largest UK charity provider of care homes who we know have been struck really hard by the pandemic. So it was good. They were very appreciative of our children and our music department putting together something for them to show their care home residents, which was fantastic. I hope you've been keeping up to date with 40 Years Friday, our hashtag, if you're involved in social media at all, or looking on our Facebook pages or on our website. 40 Years Friday. We had been planning huge celebrations for 40 years of full co-education, 40 years since full co-education began at Bristol Grammar School. The pandemic put paid to a lot of those plans, but what we have been able to do is our 40 Years Friday series, where each Friday we've been putting up some photos and memories of each year since then, which has been fantastic, generating lots of good reconnections, I hope, lots of good memories. Our most popular post was the 1988 one so far of all the housemasters from that time, which garnered thousands of views and hundreds of comments, which has been fantastic. I think we're up to about 1996 now. So please do have a look at that if that's the sort of thing that would interest you. It's been fantastic to connect with people. If you're interested in that kind of thing and the news that goes on at the school, but you're not really interested in social media or logging into websites and so on, there is now a brilliant Old Bristolians app you can get from the App Store for Apple phones, from the Play Store for Google, for Android phones and so on. I really recommend you get it. You sign on, you say what you'd be interested in. I want to hear what's happening in sport. I want to hear what's happening in drama. I want to hear what's happening with Old Bristolian events. You might even be bored enough to want to hear what the headmaster is tweeting about. You can literally pick what it is you're interested in, and it curates it, delivers it to your phone there and then without you having to go through all the different social media platforms. It's fantastic, it's free, look for it on your app store. And the other thing I'll draw attention to is our fantastic OB lecture series, Old Bristolians lecture series, that's been going on since September. Kicked off brilliantly by Robert Lacey, the author, the royal correspondent who is the consultant on The Crown, for example. Absolutely brilliant talk about Harry and William and their relationship. Very poignant, emotional moment when he was considering his time at BGS as well. And since then we've had a huge variety of brilliant speakers, a nutritionist in Rebecca Guy, a couple of authors. We've had Alex Betts talking as a professor of forced migration. We've had Mark Watson, obviously the famous comedian. We've got sports people coming on and more to come. It's been brilliant. You can see lots of those that were recorded with permission of those delivering on our website too. So lots has been going on. I'm just going to round out with a couple of other things then. Just to let you know, we've talked about the direction the school's heading in whenever I've had the opportunity to speak with you. In particular, trying to take us back to being a school that is for the City of Bristol, for everyone in the City of Bristol, not just those who can afford such an excellent education. Since the death of the direct grant and the assisted places scheme, schools like Bristol Grammar School have become, unfortunately, more and more the preserve of those who can afford it. And we have our own school assisted places scheme. We're brilliantly funding over 100 kids in the senior school at an average of 50% of the fees, some of them at 100% or even more. But we want to be better at that. And we also want to be better at reaching out to our community, which is why we've spoken to Bristol City Council and to local councillors over what difference we as a school can make, and have started making great strides in that area. To that end, we appointed 2 senior colleagues this year, Becky Davis, who's our deputy head. It's a new position in charge of co-curriculum and partnerships, and also looking after all of our diversity and inclusion work. So central to everything we want to do here. And we are doing really good work in those areas, led by Becky, with lots of other great colleagues involved, and our pupils being fully involved, whether that's decolonising the curriculum or whether that's looking at our admissions procedures and our recruitment processes, and so on. All of this came into sharp focus after the death of George Floyd, to which we had a strong community response last year. But we were doing this work, it predates it. We were doing work with external organisations on equality and diversity, on messaging around that. We were doing all our decolonisation work before that of the curriculum. So it's great to have somebody in place who's really leading on that for us. We also appointed recently our Director of Development, Nadine Latte. She has joined us, and it's very exciting to see what she'll be doing. I know development can get a bad rap because of the way it's handled so badly at many places. Nadine has joined us with one simple mission, and that is to improve the life chances of many young children in Bristol who don't currently get the opportunities that a school like Bristol Grammar School can provide. That is her sole mission, and that's what she's here for. We haven't appointed a development director to get brand new buildings or a new swimming pool like you may hear in other places. And I'm really excited about the work that Nadine is going to be leading together with our foundation office, and I hope that you'll hear more about that in the times to come. But I've really prattled on long enough. Thank you for giving me your time. I'll be surprised if you listen to the whole thing, but very pleasantly surprised. You have the option of having hit fast forward a few times. Maybe you've done that. Maybe you'll come back to this at another time. I don't know. But thanks for listening. I'm really glad that you're taking the time to reconnect with old friends from your time at Bristol Grammar School tonight. I hope that's going really, really well. And it just leaves me to say to you, I hope you have a great time for the rest of the night. Stay safe. and I want to finish with what I would traditionally finish with. I don't have a glass of champagne, unfortunately, with me. It's the middle of the workday, but if I did, I'd be raising it to you now. I'll raise a virtual glass in a toast to the Old Bristolians Society.